Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. Tyrone start off Division 1 in 2024 with a win and a massive win. 17 points to 111. A 3-point victory against the Rossies and certainly be a memorable result for Tyrone. Interesting game. They played the majority of the second half down to 14 men. I thought it was a very harsh red card by Con Kilpatrick. Like when you look at the replays, argy bargy, couple of lads getting in a scuffle. I don't know. Just if you're sending off Con Kilpatrick, you probably have to send off one of the Roscommon players then as well. But to be fair, I don't think anyone should have been sent off. It looked like he threw a punch, but at the end of the day, I don't know. It was a very fast replay. If they were able to slow it down, you could look at it. But in the end, it didn't matter. And fair play to Tyrone for digging out the victory, for getting the result. And they showed a lot of battle. They showed a lot of fight that I think has often been missing with Tyrone. For me, when I look at Tyrone as a team, I've never really doubted their ability as such in terms of the players that they have, like Dara Canavan, Rory Canavan coming through, Connor Cush coming through, some of the more fresher players that we saw sort of on show today, the likes of Ben Cullen, Kieran Daly, all very, very impressive. But it was more so like Tyrone's fight when you've looked at them in the last couple of years. Is Fergal Logan and Brian Dooher the right men to lead Tyrone forward? I know obviously they won an All-Ireland a couple of years ago, but they haven't really kicked on since then, and they've looked probably a million miles away from that team since then, if we're being honest. But fair play to them today. They dug deep. It was a difficult game for them, especially going down to 14 men. I know Roscommon obviously had a man black-hearted during certain periods, so that maybe helped ever so slightly. But I think at the same time, Tyrone dug deep. They were very, very well organised. Michael McKernan was absolutely brilliant. 2 points from him. Pádraig Hampsey, very, very good. And considering, when you look at Tyrone's side, there was a lot of fresh faces in there to what we would normally see. The likes of Kieran Daly, the likes of Ben Cullen, both Quins, obviously, at wing-back. It was a very different Tyrone side to what we saw in previous years. And the fact that they were able to dig deep and get the victory and get the win, I thought was very, very impressive from a Tyrone perspective. The goal at the end for Roscommon I'm not too sure who actually got the goal, to be honest with you, but I think the referee judged the foul because of a throw ball. Unfortunately, my Gaelic is not too good, so I couldn't make out what the commentary were saying, unfortunately. So it was very hard to actually know, was it a throw ball, was it a square ball, as to why they didn't give the goal. But either way, it looked very harsh in my opinion. But I do think it was the fair result. Look, Tyrone were the deserved victors. I thought Roscommon were a bit poor, to be honest. A bit like the Galway Mayo game earlier. Like Roscommon didn't really pull the trigger. They seemed to be playing, at 60. They certainly weren't playing at their best. Absolutely no doubt about it. I thought they were good in the first half. I mean, it was a very well taken goal from Donny Smith. Collects the ball on the half turn, rifles it beyond Niall Morgan. And speaking of Niall Morgan, he was absolutely brilliant as well. I suppose when we look at modern day goalkeepers sort of being the extra man and all this crack, I think sometimes it's a little bit, it's not really done correctly. I think sometimes some goalkeepers don't really actually know what they're doing, to be honest with you, like joining the attacks. And we saw it in the Kerry-Derry game yesterday, like what on earth was going on there. But Niall Morgan, he does it right. He comes out when he has to come out. He reads the ball brilliantly. Few times Roscommon trying to work attacks, trying to play the ball into Roscommon's forwards of Conor Cox and Jeremy Murtagh, and out would come Niall Morgan just to collect the ball. And he was absolutely superb. He really, really was. I thought overall Tyrone were very, very good, and Roscommon were definitely poor. It definitely wasn't the best version of Roscommon, but I think at the same time you wouldn't say it was the best version of Tyrone either. Maybe a bit like the Mayo and Galway game earlier. And Roscommon just never really, especially with the fact that Tyrone were down to 14 men, they didn't really up the ante. They couldn't really get, even some of the lads coming, off the bench couldn't really make an impact. And Tyrone just weren't really, they weren't really at it. They just weren't really at it, to be Roscommon. And you would think with how good Roscommon looked in the league last year, they would place a lot of emphasis. This is a big opportunity, big game, because ultimately, look, I think Tyrone, Roscommon, they may be. I predicted Tyrone to get relegated, and look, they might still get relegated. Maybe they might stay up. But this was a massive chance for Roscommon to get 2 points on the board, especially with Tyrone going down to 14 men. And they just didn't take their opportunities. Their shooting was very poor as well. Like, they had a lot of wides in this game. And yeah, they were very, very poor. In fairness, plenty of comments flying in. Big up to the chat. Dublin is great. Is here. Rory says Con Kilpatrick sending off was very harsh. It definitely was. Should have been a yellow. James says, go on. Tyrone coming home happy after that. Was right beside that so-called red. What a joke. Every player stepped up. Definitely did. And Dara Canavan, again, really, really good at the start of the second half. And overall, top quality performance from him. He's still a very young lad, and people forget that. Like, he's been around. He's been in this Tyrone team, obviously, for a good couple of years. But, he is one of the main players. He is one of the top players, obviously, within this Tyrone side. And look, considering you'll probably still have Darren McCurry maybe to come back in, still have Matty Donnelly at some point. Rory Canavan might be a regular starter at some point. Considering the amount, because I looked at that Tyrone side and I thought Roscommon, obviously Roscommon are missing a few players as well, the likes of Ben O'Carroll and whatnot. But you looked at it and thought, massive opportunity for Roscommon, get 2 points on the board and kick on. And to be fair, it was the other way around. It was Tyrone who stood up. And they were very, very good in doing so, in fairness. Like, Niall Devlin had a very good game as well coming in. He was very impressive. Ace says here, Derry put Tyrone back to bed next week. Yeah, that's, what a weekend for the Ulster counties, by the way. All of them won, barring Fermanagh. Every side within the Ulster province won this weekend, barring Fermanagh. Like, that's an extraordinary statistic, and fair play to all the Ulster counties, who had a very, very great weekend in comparison to Leinster, where I think the only sides that won from Leinster were Laois, Wexford, and Westmeath, and 2 of those wins were against other Leinster counties. So, yeah, like, the Ulster province, it is the most competitive province for a reason, and fair play, like, all very, very good results. And even Fermanagh's draw against Meath was probably a result that not many people saw coming. It was actually a result I correctly predicted, but there we go. Dublin is great, says, I thought Tyrone would get relegated. Yeah, look, I mean, still a long way to go, but I think if Tyrone show those same levels of fight, and especially with better players to come in, I think they'll actually be fine. And maybe they will be, they'll be kicking on towards a league final potentially. Will he be doing any watch-alongs? Absolutely. Be bringing the watch-alongs back soon. Meadman says Noel Morgan should be in contention for being the best keeper in the country. The amount of scores generated through his attacking, it's unbelievable. Yeah, I think it is, and I think especially with Cluxton, like, Cluxton overall, I think we would say is the best goalkeeper of my lifetime. But I think you could arguably say, as in right now, Morgan is the best, because Cluxton maybe isn't the same. He probably doesn't have this. And to be fair, they're 2 different keepers. Like, you never seen Cluxton be that sweeper keeper as such. You never seen Cluxton join attacks. 2 different keepers in many ways. If we're looking at the modern day goalkeepers, I think you look at Rory Begg and you look at Noel Morgan, and yeah, like, the way Morgan was able to break up attacks and be a +1 defensively, but then also, he's getting forward, but he's picking out the right passes and he's not taking the piss and all this crack, So yeah, I thought it was very good, very, very good, in fairness. Didn't expect that result. Could maybe stay up now. Yeah, look, I mean, that's the thing. You win your opening game. Like, realistically, you probably only need 7 points to stay up, you would say. 3 wins and a draw, 4 wins max, 3 wins. I think it's going to be very close at the bottom, though, this year. I think you're going to have a load of teams probably on 4, 6 points. I genuinely do think going into the final day, you'll have some teams fighting for, some teams that could get into a league final, but some teams that could also get relegated. A bit like a couple of years ago, I remember when Kildare got relegated, but there was also the slight possibility they could have ended up in a league final when they were in Division 1. And I think the same could possibly happen again. Talking about Tyrone, Tom says Roscommon will struggle to stay up. Very poor defensively. Yeah, they were just very naive, weren't they? Like, cut apart at the back. Left themselves way too exposed when they were the ones with the extra man. Tyrone could have had a couple more goals, a couple of saves forced from the Roscommon goalkeeper. So, it actually could have been more comfortable for Tyrone, in fairness. Rory says, Noel Morgan plays midfield with Eden Dork. Yeah, he does, and you can definitely see that. Tyrone might not get relegated. Yeah, look, Tyrone are in a good position. They're definitely in a good position. Obviously, them against Derry next week. I think there'll be a lot on the line there. Obviously a lot of bad blood between both, as there usually is. And then I suppose when you look at the scenario, obviously of Mickey Hart going to Derry, I think that means it's it's going to add even more to that game, and it's going to be a very good game. Maybe might do a watch along maybe for that game, in fairness. But yeah, huge result this for Tyrone, and definitely for Roscommon. Like, look, I think I'll keep the same energy for what I said about Galway earlier. You don't want to be hitting panic buttons or anything like that. It's not necessarily the end of the world. Even if Roscommon do go down, is it the end of the world? Probably not. And we see a lot of sides go down to Division 2 and come straight back up anyway. So, is it really that big of a deal? I'm not too sure that it is. But I think when I looked at Roscommon, they didn't seem to have the same energy that they had in the league last year. And whether that's because they ran out of steam in the championship, when they were looking very good for so long, let's not forget they nearly beat Dublin and Croke Park in the championship. Just a couple of weeks before Dublin went out and absolutely blitzed Mayo, and it was only a couple of months after that Dublin won the All-Ireland. So, yeah, I think for Roscommon, there's definitely a lot of work to do. It's not the end of the world, but Roscommon have got a couple of big games coming up. They go to Croke Park in a couple of weeks against Dublin. I'm actually not entirely sure who they're playing next week, but that's a big game because you want to get something on the board before you go to Croke Park. Because there could be a likelihood that Dublin go into that game with nothing if we don't get anything from Mayo next week. So, yeah, huge in fairness. What did you think of the Donegal Cork game? Yeah, I haven't seen it, but I've seen the score, and I wasn't surprised. I think Donegal are going to come out of the traps as I predicted, all guns blazing. And they brush Cork to a side, and look, Cork are a good side, and yeah, I think Donegal will comfortably get promoted. Like, you look at Armagh yesterday against Louth, although Armagh got over the line, they nearly messed that one up, and that's why I just think there'll be a little bit of inconsistency with Armagh, whereas Donegal, I think, will come out all guns blazing, and I think they'll wrap promotion up quite early, in my opinion. Gaelic guy says Roscommon did put a lot in the league last year, so might be thinking about that. Yeah, like, they just didn't seem to play with the same energy that they did in the league last year. But look, obviously it's one game. These things can happen. And certainly there's a long way to go in the league yet. And Roscommon have got some big games, obviously, at home. I think Roscommon do have 4 away games as opposed to, some counties obviously have 4 home games. Roscommon have 4 away games. So that, could be tough. Their away games are quite difficult, going to Croke Park. Albeit they nearly beat Dublin and Croke Park last year, and look, they'll have looked at what Monaghan did and take confidence from that. But yeah, look, it's gonna be an interesting league. It definitely is. Definitely some interesting results. Tyrone winning, Derry winning, Monaghan winning. As I said, what a result, or what a weekend for the province of Ulster. All of the counties from Ulster won, barring Fermanagh. And that's considering they all play quite high up as well, Division 2, 3, 1. That is very impressive, in fairness. So fair play to the lads from Tyrone and the lads from Ulster. So there we go. Yeah, we'll be going live tomorrow at some stage to review all the weekend's action. So we'll discuss the Donegal game there in more detail. We'll review over the Dublin game again in more detail. This game, all the games. Definitely some interesting results. I mean, probably not too many big surprises in the league, you would say. Maybe Fermanagh drawn with Meath, although personally I did see that result coming. Kildare losing to Cavan may be a surprise, but I think I predicted Cavan to win that one as well, to be fair. So, but yeah, some interesting results. Most certainly. Monaghan beating Dublin, definitely a big result. Derry, obviously, what a huge win for them against Kerry. So, yeah, we'll discuss all that tomorrow in more detail. So, yeah, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. My name's Aaron, and I will speak to you all soon.